Yahoo Fantasy Baseball Week 9 action. We're going to go ahead and take a look at Tucson Toros League. Waveland and Sheffield taking on Lucky in Week 9 action. And this one went to Waveland and Sheffield. 6-4 was the final score in a close one. Waveland and Sheffield now improves to 46, 36, and 8, while Lucky is now 32, 52, and 6. Waveland ends a 2-week skid by picking up the victory here, while Lucky has lost 3 straight since picking up the only win that team has seen all year. Waveland and Sheffield set a season high in saves this week and had a season low in batting average. Had just 2 pitching victories the last 3 weeks for Waveland. So pitching victories are hard to come by for Waveland and Sheffield's pitching staff right now. Lucky had the season best whip of the year so far and had a season worst in homers and strikeouts. 7 of 9 weeks into the season, Lucky has recorded 2 pitching victories. That was actually enough to pick up the win this week, but 7 times the final tally in the pitching win category was a 2 for Lucky. That's very unusual. Also had a very impressive 1 whip. 1.00 whip for the week to go with a really bad ERA, a 4.71 ERA. So not sure how that was accomplished, but it helped Lucky win the whip category. Anyway, Waveland took 3 of 5 on offense and in pitching, so 3 of 5 on the offensive side and the pitching side. Offensive battles were competitive. The pitching categories were really not that much at all. Waveland got 8 homers from 4 different players, so those 4 players definitely helped produce multiple homers to carry that category. Carlos Lee, for example, 3 homers, 8 RBIs for the week. He had a great week. 10 players had at least a run, and 3 players had 6 or more RBIs. That's fantastic production. Albert Pujols was the man that you expect to get with the number 1 pick in the draft. All around great. 3 runs, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, and a 381 average for the week. That's a 5-category freak right there. Jason Hayward had an average of 107 for the week. That's not good for the young rookie from the Braves. Just 2 players hit over 300. So the hitting was not the best for Waveland and Sheffield this week, but got the job done nonetheless. Lucky used just 8 players out of a possible 10 starters. Only 8 players were actually used this week. An injury-plagued roster. Only produced 2 home runs for the week. That's terrible. Joe Mauer was hitting .214 for the week and didn't drive in any runs this week. Mauer's been a little bit banged up and hasn't really returned to form just yet either. Michael Young for Lucky had 7 RBIs and a .333 average. Him along with Alex Rios' 6 runs and a .364 average. Those 2 really led the way on offense. The rest of the team really didn't do anything of mention. On the pitching mound, Waveland had 4 players with a save. Francisco Rodriguez and John Roush each had 3 saves apiece, while Jose Valverde and Bobby Jenks each had a 0 ERA. So those 4 working together put up great stats out of the bullpen. While the lone win for Waveland and Sheffield this week was from Felix Hernandez. Now, this is a guy that hasn't really been producing a lot of wins for Waveland as of late, but got the lone win for the team this week, had 9 strikeouts and a 1.13 ERA. Carlos Zambrano returned to the starting rotation for the Chicago Cubs. This did not help Waveland and Sheffield this week, though. He had a 6.23 ERA in his less than 5-inning return to the Cubs starting rotation. Lucky used just 5 pitchers all week. That helps Lucky to win the whip category. Managed to take the wins category, as we mentioned, because Waveland's been struggling to produce victories. Lucky was able to squeak out a win in that category. Unfortunately, though, Lucky has 3 pitchers on the DL, so that's going to hurt in the wins, saves, and strikeouts categories going forward. Not going to get lucky every week like they did in the win category this week. Jack Qualls was the bright spot, though. Had a save, had an ERA of 0, and picked up a win as well. A.J. Burnett, though, he had a 9 ERA. Did not help the cause when you're not using a whole lot of pitchers. You need everybody to perform well, and Burnett definitely did not do that. One thing we do want to point out, though, is Lucky really didn't use a lot of pitchers with 3 pitchers on the DL. If a starter misses a start or something, this team is really flirting with the possibility of not hitting the minimum innings requirement for fantasy scoring. For those that don't understand, you have to at least have 15 innings pitched to qualify for any of the 5 pitching categories. If you don't get to that 15 number, you automatically forfeit all 5 categories. So Lucky's flirting with that, got by that 15 mark this week. May want to make some changes to avoid that becoming a complete disaster down the road, especially if somebody else falls by the wayside or misses an even 1 start. Looking forward, Waveland and Sheffield's now 5th in the standings, 9.5 games out of first, so top 6 material there. Definitely needs to stay in the top 6. Top 6 makes the playoffs. And taking on AZ Padres. This is an up-and-coming team that's really looking good the last few weeks, and Waveland's going to need to see put the team to the test and see if Waveland can stay in the top 6 or if AZ Padres is going to possibly leapfrog, take Waveland's spot on the shelf. Well, Lucky is now 15th in the standings out of 16 teams, 4 games out of 12. Now, remember, the top 12 get postseason play, so if you don't get in that top 12, you don't even get to see the postseason, even in the consolation round. Lucky's got an uphill battle taking on Jimmy Dugan in Week 10. They faced off one time last year with Dugan coming out on top.